So we're having a conversation about the Montreal Canadiens and the Edmonton Oilers and how some of these guys may or may not be included on certain projections for the all-so-elusive, the grandest stage of them all, Team Canada, for the 2026 Winter Olympic Games. Now, I'm making this video because of a few posts that I saw on social media. I'll go out there and be really clear with that. Starting out with this post made by NHL Network from earlier yesterday. Take a look at their Team Canada 2026 Olympic projections. On defense, you have Devon Toews, Cale Makar, Josh Morrissey, Noah Dobson, Shea Theodore, and Dougie Hamilton. No Evan Bouchard, which is interesting. There are a few extra names that you could debate may or may not be included on the inevitable 2026 list. But for the most part, I think these main guys, the Makars, the Dobsons, the Theodores, I'm going to still say Theodore's going to be one of those top guys. Yeah, I can understand if he's going to be in there. And then for goaltending, you have Adin Hill, Jordan Binnington, and Stuart Skinner. Now, you could very well say that goaltending for Canada is not going to be a strong suit. It's been one of the more, let's just say, criticized parts of the Canadian hockey body because long gone are the days where we have number ones everywhere. Carey Price, Martin Brodeur, Roberto Luongo. These guys are not really there anymore. And while Adin Hill has been good, is he a definitive number one? Well, he may have no choice by the time 2026 rolls around. But when it comes to the forward lines, this is where things get interesting. Because NHL Network's current projections for forwards go as follows. A top line of Braden Point, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman. A second line of Brad Marchand, Sidney Crosby, and Mitch Marner. A third line of Mark Scheifele, Nathan MacKinnon, and Matthew Barzal. And a fourth line of Carter Verhaeghe, Connor Bedard, and Sam Reinhart. They were very intentional with the pairings here. McDavid and Hyman, 1-2 on the first line. Crosby and Marchand, they played together on Team Canada at the World Cup of Hockey in 2016. Now, we get it, Sidney Crosby is going to be 38 gosh darn years old by the time the 2026 Olympics rolls around, so who really knows where he's going to fit there, but if they wanted to roll with that same duo 10 years after they initially played together, then hey, that sounds like a good idea. The third line doesn't really have any pairings, but then the fourth line does. They have Sam Reinhart and Carter Verhaeghe together. It is interesting because they do list Connor Bedard as a fourth line center option. But the reason I'm making this video is because I wanted to have a conversation about Montreal Canadiens captain Nick Suzuki. Because I feel like it's kind of annoying to go out there and make conversations about, oh, this guy should be included on that list. Why is this guy not there? I'm so angry. I'm so pissed off that my guy is not there. Like, I feel that's kind of annoying, but for the most part, this is one of the only situations where I feel very, very strongly that having Nick Suzuki not on this list is kind of a big deal. And I will say, it's challenging because you don't really have a clear idea as to who should get removed, and that's partly why I feel like this is such a difficult conversation to have, because when it comes to Nick Suzuki, I mean, he himself already has talked about wanting to be able to participate in the Olympics. Here was a quote from Suzuki earlier yesterday. I definitely thought about the Olympics a lot. I'd love to be a part of that team. We'll see what happens. I've just got to keep doing my job, show what type of player I could be, and we'll see what happens. And another comment goes out there and says, yeah, Nick Suzuki says, it's hard to say, but I feel like I can defend, penalty kill, play offensively. I think I bring a lot of different things to the table, and hopefully they see that, and I have a decent shot. Now, when it comes to this list, who realistically could you say that Nick Suzuki is a better hockey player than? Honestly, in my mind, there's really one standout name and maybe one extra guy you could debate. I mean, Carter Verhaeghe on the fourth line isn't really the most star power name on this roster, which I guess you could say opens the room for debate on him, but he is on pace for about 40 goals this year. He did hit 40 goals last year, and realistically, Verhaeghe has been in such a great spot to boost up his career over the past few years that I don't really know if that's 100% fair. But having Zach Hyman on this team, on that first line with Connor McDavid, hey, I totally understand the philosophy there. I'm just saying, man, would you rather have Zach Hyman on your hockey team or Nick Suzuki? Furthermore, you could say, okay, maybe age is going to catch up to guys like Brad Marchand, for example. Maybe Mark Scheifele. There are some replies that go out there and question the legitimacy of some of these players as they'll get older into 2026. But for Zach Hyman, this is probably the guy I'd say is the worst forward here. Like, if I was building a team from scratch this year, let alone in 2026, and I had to choose from this selection of 12 forwards, I don't know, man. Zach Hyman is that guy, and I'm not gonna try to discredit a literal 50 goal scorer in the NHL, one of the top goal scorers in the entire league. We just made a video a few days ago talking about how him leaving Toronto was the biggest mistake the Leafs have made in a long time. But having Zach Hyman be the guy that he is, I mean, there's a reason he's playing with McDavid on this roster. Because everybody acknowledges that the reason Zach Hyman has been as good as he has been is because he's been that guy. He's the tap-in net front presence. He's the garbage goal. He's the rebound goal. He's that player. And there's so few players in the NHL who have been given that specific task where it's like, yeah, we don't really care how many assists you get, Zach Hyman. Our goal is for Connor McDavid to chuck it out in front past a ton of guys, and you're going to be the player who puts it in the back of the net. Zach Hyman has 69 points in 68 games played, and 50 of those points are goals. It's kind of nuts when you really think about it. And when you ask about Nick Suzuki, my question becomes, okay, well, Nick Suzuki, by the time 2026 rolls around, he'll be 26 years old. He's got an outside chance of being a very legit two-way, all-situations, playmaking, sniping center by the time 2026 rolls around. Is that more valuable than Zach Hyman? I mean, I would argue yes. Let alone the fact that Zach Hyman, by the time 2026 rolls around, he'll be 33 years old. Who knows how much he'll be able to produce by the time that season rolls around. If he keeps on getting tap-ins from Connor McDavid, okay, great. Like, he'll be able to do that. But realistically, having a player of Zach Hyman's skill set on this Olympic team would be a cut-and-paste repeat situation of the Sidney Crosby, Chris Kunitz thing from a decade ago as well, where Chris Kunitz wasn't really an Olympic caliber athlete, it's just Chris Kunitz was the best player in the world playing beside Sidney Crosby, and that's why they brought him on, not because Kunitz by himself was that good, but because him playing with Crosby made them both better. And he had a goal in 6 games in the Olympics to show for it. So, is an individual talent like Nick Suzuki really enough to break that bond that Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman have brought up? It's not to say that nobody else can succeed at Zach Hyman's job, it's just we don't know who else is the best suited for that, because it's only Zach Hyman who has that job. So at the end of the day, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan or an Edmonton Oilers fan, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below, because I do want to get a grasp as to how the audience on YouTube will respond to this conversation, because I'm not the only one bringing this up. Like, there are a lot of people who have replied to this individual post on NHL Network talking about, oh, other guys are better than XYZ, Nick Suzuki, Robert Thomas, Konechny, these guys should all be on this list. Why is Marner here? Why is Carter Verhaeghe here? Etc., etc. And then there's the criticism that's like, yeah, why is Bedard on the 4th line? Like, it's going to be 2026. Sure, you have McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon ahead of him, but like, the entire Team Canada identity over the past few years when NHLers were going was just draft as many centers as you can and play them all on the wing because they could all play defensive hockey pretty well, while also having those qualities to them. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section as to where Team Canada is going to go with this, whether or not you feel Nick Suzuki should make the team over a guy like Zach Hyman, if there's anybody else on this list that you think is ill-advised to be placed on this team and inappropriately so. And I want you to let me know who you think should also be here. Does Macklin Celebrini get a chance to crack the Canadian roster? Do you have other young guys like Quinton Byfield eventually make his way onto this team? Does Owen Power crack on defense? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about the Canadian projected lines by NHL Network for the 2026 Winter Olympics. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.